Ridgewater's first industrial site has been cleared. What began as a temporary industrial site is now one of the most valuable pieces of land in town, close to Main Street, near existing services, and large enough for the kind of civic project Ridgewater has not been able to build yet. But the land does not come free. The former site is controlled by Graham Mercer, an industrial landowner with a growing logistics footprint, and that expansion needs more than road access. It needs workers close enough to support it. So the town gets a proposal. Ridgewater can acquire the former starter site and turn it into the town's first high school district. Owen Voss gets the opening to build higher value apartments near that school. And Mercer gets what he actually wants: interstate-side land rezoned for workforce housing near the new industrial park. It is not a public celebration. It is a land deal. And today that deal decides what Ridgewater's old industrial ground becomes next. Back to Ridgewater. We are picking up right where we left off at episode 5. We just built our new industrial park. And, now we're seeing kind of the system adapt and traffic settle in. Which right now we're sitting at 89%. So we're in pretty good shape there right now. And, we've covered a whole lot of ground in the last couple episodes. We've really shaped this half of our town. And, our core structure is still sitting here. It still needs some movement, but, we're really setting the bones down and really getting comfortable with the layout, and we're building organically, and that's going to keep our realism up. But our episode today, we're focusing kind of on the land deal and what we're going to do with our old industrial site. And I think it has a lot of potential. We're kind of building on the water. We're kind of not. It's a little wooded. It's a little harsh. You can see the topography lines. There's not a lot of usable to get really down in here. I think that's going to kind of come with the expansion over here. But I do think that we're at a point that we still don't have a high school, and we still don't have an education pipeline, and that matters with jobs and being able to continue to expand how you feel like the town needs to expand, and each business, each industry requires that education pipeline to be strong and the town to be happy. But I think we'll start off with a little bit of prep work here and a little bit of lot clearing. So, and I use this forest setting here just because I have the strength up pretty high, and it's more of my erase setting more than I went in and set it up or anything. But we'll start kind of carving out the natural gaps we have, and I think we'll definitely be building in here, but we're gonna just start, and we'll clear as we solidify. But for now, I think right now the plan would be this lot right here, I think would serve really well for our high school campus. Some of our narration we have going on in our organic build has Owen Voss over here. He's our residential developer that we introduced early in the episodes. I think he's going to kind of come back in and want to play off of the high school, and with high school and town development comes residential development. But I do think that we're at a point that we can move toward not just standard housing neighborhoods. I think we have a pretty good development over here, and we still have more than enough room to kind of keep standard neighborhood designs moving naturally. But I think with the bigger campus build that we're going to put down today, we can kind of put ourselves in our first kind of apartment complex, and that'll drive our population up a little higher, a little faster without getting too much sprawl. And I want to keep the small town footprint, but we also need to satisfy some game mechanics. And while it is a small town, apartment complexes are still pretty standard. Now, a part of the land deal is also, I think, looking right here in this highway section at maybe some lower income apartments, and nothing too gigantic, just kind of use this no man's land of heavy noise and close proximity to jobs. And since we're here, let's take care of our recycling center, and I think that'll kind of set us up pretty good for moving back into our original core build and starting to shape it and develop it as we push back into our town, because we kind of set our base structure in here and then just kind of had to jump to reactionary building and really kind of set ourselves up for the job push, our civic services, our public services push. And we'll see how they do and how they respond. So let's get some road networking going in here now. Our Enter the Sandbox latest episode kind of dove into the traffic side of Ridgewater, and it has quite a strong throughput ability. And while I'm not a huge fan of four ways right here, the intersection I think can handle it. And even if we get a little hot, I think we still have plenty of ways we can manage that without having to think that we need to restructure the entire roadway network. So let's get a little bit of networking in here just to start. And so we'll kind of start off with some grids. I think we'll just match the other downtown over there, because I kind of foresee this as being a second downtown, an extension of Main Street. And so I think I'll come off. Let's see, what size do we run right here? 320. So we'll keep a 320 grid. Kind of run over here. Now I do think that we can run kind of a coastal road in here. So I think we'll just pick a good elevation, probably in between these two topography lines right here. And this will kind of give us that secondary road, and in the future, depending on how we grow, we could even see a crossover out here. And now we can go ahead and clear ourselves a little bit. Let's size this down so we don't take too many trees out. And kind of clean our roadways up. We might end up having power lines or something like that running through here. So it does look like we have a whole lot of dead trees. So let's go ahead and get back to our roads. No reason to run it too much further. One, we don't have this tile open, and two, we don't really know what's coming in here. To me, this is enough grid work to establish the start of a future Main Street extension and not have to come in and make too many changes or redevelopment. So we kind of get some of the basic road network. And then I think we can come right out. Probably, let's get in front of this tree patch. But we could run an extra block. Curve into this extension and kind of close ourselves out and give us some pretty unique blocks to work with. And I think I'm going to leave any extra connection out right now. Maybe in the future we can come in somewhere here and give ourselves a secondary entrance into what we develop in here. But I think that will get us into our high school campus zone. And we kind of have a reasonable start to getting into our apartment complex zone. But we can go ahead and take this to the map, or take it to the border out here. And that should get us more than close enough, because we might find some kind of land use opportunity right out here. And if we do decide to cross over, which really wouldn't be a bad thing to give multiple entry and exit points into the neighboring future towns. So our topography is in pretty good shape out here. We don't really need to do much. Let's pause the simulation real quick and kind of restructure our feeding lines and see what we actually need now. These are kind of old pre-development. Now, I do think that having a certain amount of lines is plenty realistic, and we'll want to put them back once we're a little bit more developed. But I think we can give ourselves a little better freedom here working. So I think we can kind of get back to our high school. So let's use some parking lot roads to kind of start this development. Come out, just put a few little stubs. Okay, I think that gives us kind of our initial loop in and out of the main road. And while we're on our roads, let's go ahead and get a few of these paved. Yeah, I think that'll work. Alright, so let's go ahead and plop down a high school. That's an elementary. And this is a custom. But I think it gives a better feel than any of the vanillas. So I think that's a pretty good, reasonably large school for a small town. 1,000 capacity. That's, at least in my area, a good AA school. Let's get a little bit of power out here. I think we can make do with a transformer for now, at least until we hook into the grid. So let's kind of start getting our inner network running. Set up at our student slash teacher parking right off the main school without too much interference. So I think we can drop that back and create another little grid. And we might still have to change it, but we'll see how things fit first. Now let's get some sports complexes going. Use this little community football field. And that will give us a initial complex, and I think that looks reasonable enough. Probably can bring that back. I don't think we want to be too much room. We can try there. Because it'd be good if we could get a little parking off the back. Because we definitely need to take care of a little bit of our other sports. And we'll get like a soccer field. Now the question is, do we treat it completely separate and put the entrance on the back? That's probably not bad. And it has built-in pathways, so I think that'll give us a good separation. Now, the town I grew up in, actually, we didn't have a dedicated soccer field. It pretty much ran with the football field. But I think this complex is a little bit bigger and could justify it. So we'll cut this one off. And now I think that just leaves us with baseball. And I think that will work nicely because it puts any home run hitting out here in the woods and kind of doesn't interfere. I think we can give ourselves maybe a dedicated block. I don't know if it's worth it, because I think from here we only really have our last sport being basketball, and I think we can give it 2. And I think we can give baseball a little bit of parking as well. Maybe 2 full lots, and that'll probably take care of it. Now, question being, is this still a justified road? And I'm not 100% sure it is, because I don't, right off the top of my head, I don't know of another use case out here that would really justify this pavement. It's not overly, it's a good exit, so I guess we could leave it for that. And I think our footprint's pretty good without being insanely dramatic, so I think that'll run us cleanly. And we are still taking some red. I mean, I did just spend a bunch of money, but might be something to look at toward the end of the episode. So we are getting good usage already, even though we're still under construction. So I think that will get our basics in, but I think we can still give it a little bit more life. But I think overall, that's probably a pretty strong campus for the town size we have. We have 2,500 residents, and but we really pushing our demand, and that's really a part of why we can just jump straight over to the next lot. So we probably can just kind of cut this lot in two, and maybe straight through to start. So I think we'll just go ahead and put some parking lots in place. And that should give us kind of a dead end section. I don't really see the need to hook back out. It is an apartment complex after all. They're not 100% fluid. So let's get that overlay off. And let's see what we have. I like these a lot, but they have a massive household. And 32 is probably a bit much for our current size, and this is 10, so I think it's still quite an attractive house complex or apartments. Give a little college town vibe, but not too much that it still puts us near the school campus without being a college town either. So I think we'll have to do a little bit of move it and take advantage of our mod stack a little bit for these. Now before we start dropping, I think we need to hit pause and get rid of our old water system from the original industrial park that we just moved. And get some of our piping under the roads. Okay, now we can get the simulation back on. We got our water pipes under the roads, and now I think we can go ahead and start on this housing development, this apartment complex development. So, I think this is where we'll have to cheat a little bit, in a sense, and move these over. So I think we can start on the edge. It's not going to like us real quick. So let's get a little power out here. We'll borrow this, keep it out of our way, and we probably can go ahead and put down a transformer, and we'll catch into that here shortly. So short of putting them all here, might end up being easier just to copy and paste these with move it, but maybe we can kind of fit 3. So I think that gives us a plenty big footprint, and we've cut our demand in half, and it was a much more realistic growth pattern. We're up about 1,000. And, if we'd have went with the other apartments at 32 households, that's it would be up 3 times more than what we are now, and that's a little much. So let's make this a little bit nicer. So now we'll go with our trusty security post. It's kind of an entry, but I think we can kind of use it as a dual purpose and go with sidewalk cafe, sidewalk restaurant. We probably go with it's a little big. Yeah. Let's see what it. That actually looks pretty good. That can kind of serve as a leasing office. So, and it'll be a starting point for any pathway. We can definitely in the detail phase work in some pathing to connect these, but I think overall that's a pretty reasonable apartment complex. Let's go ahead and get some lines painted. Okay, well, that takes care of at least our parking until we get to the detail stage. And I think this is kind of your either guest or leasing, and maybe a few guest spots, but all in all, I think we have good bones here on the newest apartment complex, and we're up to 3,500, and we still have residential demand, so I think that puts us in a pretty good place over here. So we have a high school campus, and we have kind of neighboring housing that's on the upper end scale, but not extreme, and definitely not college. So I think that's a good middle ground for now between small town growth and a little bit beefier growth, because I do see in the future extending Main Street and kind of managing that, and it looks like our elementary will be next on the board, and we'll probably want to develop out a little bit more before we look at this side of town and where that would fit best. But I think we can jump over here, and we'll go ahead and get our road paved a little further. And I think in here is a good place for some low-income housing. And it puts us right here with the industrial complex and the jobs, and it's kind of a better use case for now. Alright, so let's stub off. Let's start back here. We'll do a 250. And that looks also like a little small leasing office or maintenance or something in that realm. Let's go ahead and wrap up our piping. Even though we don't really need it, that'll be enough. Okay. Well, we still have our parking lot spaces to put in, but I think overall from here, we can add some pathways, we can add, some tree lines to kind of really bring depth in and bring in realism. So, but I think overall this takes care of our housing demand well. We've tanked it down a little bit. Our industrial has spiked, so we're kind of fully staffed out here. So, what we got going on here? Guess it caught on fire. But, so we're fully staffed there. Our new industrial park's definitely fully employed and quite happy. So, it will have to, from a game mechanic standpoint, we are going to probably have to bring in something else to start putting some jobs out here and keep that at bay and not change the growth pattern or make us build something dramatically oversized for the area or something like that. Notifications are off. Need to empty that one. So, but I think that takes care of our demand for the moment. I think that fills our jobs and gives us, some commercial, some industrial push to where we can kind of keep growing, keep expanding the way we see fit as we come back into this area. So I think this leaves us in a good place for detailing. Okay, well, I think that kind of details this up pretty well. Like I always like to say, I think you can always detail. You can always add, you can always create more depth. It's just kind of one of those things, you just kind of pass by, you add a little more, tweak, change. But overall, I think we've gotten a little bit more wooded without being extreme about it. We've gotten some good pathways. We're kind of interconnected a little bit from a pedestrian standpoint. We have access into the school now. For any kids that are over here, And, I think with our park additions, that creates good, apartment complex amenities. We have volleyball and basketball and playground. So, and I think we have, this works as a park, of course, because it is a park. So I think that gives us a little best of both worlds. It gives us a little building that looks like a leasing office, but in the same turn, it provides the game mechanics and usefulness. And, we have our little security post, so that kind of keeps our crime running around. And, and we've put on a lot of good population. We're sitting at 4,500. We started off around 24. So, I think that really we really dove our residential demand down. And, we have spiked our industrial a little bit, and our commercial is still sitting pretty steady. But I think we've settled things down enough to kind of decide what direction is best for the community. And, and I think we have good little housing here, much smaller housing, much starter housing for our residents, and it puts you close to jobs. And, and it, I think it blends in well over here. It's kind of right off the farm edge. It's right on the backside of our main neighborhood. So, I think it's a good addition for a pretty noisy, pretty heavy use, pretty undesirable plot, to be honest. So, I think it fits in well there. Okay, well, I think that takes care of this episode of Ridgewater County. I think we've put ourselves in a good place, and and I've had fun building today. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode, and and hope you're enjoying the direction Ridgewater's headed. I'd love to hear any comments, any concerns, any possible development paths that you might be interested in. And if not, I think this is a good place to leave Ridgewater and look at what we're going to be moving into next episode. And I hope you join me then. We'll see you next time.